Okay, while we're waiting for your piece to set up in the sun a little bit, I thought I'd go over a couple requirements for this piece. So as I mentioned at the beginning, you're creating a enclosed, hollow pinch pot form. And what we're actually gonna call this is a vessel. And the basic requirements for the piece are you're going to create the two structures that fit together and completely hide the seam, which I'm going to show you how to do next once we get our pieces back in here. You also are going to need to have what we're going to call a key piece for your lid. So you are going to be cutting it apart, and it's going to go about 3/4 of a ways up on the top of the vessel. So I will demonstrate that as well once we've smoothed out the form. And finally, you're going to need to add some type of little form, whether it be a little object that you replicate or even just a shape where you can actually hold the top of the vessel to take the lid off. That's the basic requirements for building form. We are going to be adding a surface design technique to it on the next video, but right now we're focusing on these key components. Okay, I believe the clay has set enough now that we can go ahead and do the next step. So like I said, I left it out in the sun for roughly 30 minutes, so it was longer than I had estimated before. Okay, so the next step, I'm going to move my board over with my two pieces. Be careful if you're setting them on their round edge because it will roll. I'm gonna set them back on my canvas. And what I'm gonna do next is I'm actually going to begin attaching these two pieces of clay together. All right, we're going to scratch and score the two pieces. Right now it's got these smooth edges. That will not work to attach these two pieces of clay. So if you imagine something like a piece of Velcro, if you've ever used Velcro before, the two pieces really have to connect together, bridge together, weave together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scratch up the surface on the top of both of these. And I mentioned before you needed to grab a tool that had some texture. I'm going to use this one that has a lot of texture, and I'm just going to go in. You know what, actually, I don't like this tool for that. I'm just going to use a fork. I'm just going in, and I'm back and forth, kind of cross-hatching, or tic-tac-toe board is what I used to tell my lower school students. Okay, on both sides. You can't just do it on one, it's gotta be on both. Okay, and once again, that goes back to the example I used with Velcro. Think about the two sides of the Velcro. It can't connect unless both have those different textures on it. Okay, so the same goes when scratching and attaching. All right, so you can see that, hopefully it's pretty scraped up. All right, now that I've done that on both sides, you're gonna wanna grab some of the slip I mentioned that's back in the ceramic space, and you're not gonna need a whole lot of this, but make sure you grab the right container. When you look at the clay, it should look like the clay that you're using, the slip. The slip should look like the clay. If it's a different color, for example, this one is a lot more gray. Okay, this is not the same clay body. And unfortunately, it's not the worst thing to do, but we really don't want to mix the different clay bodies together. You want a slip or a glue that is compatible, the same as the clay that you're using. So I've got my slip in here, and I'm just going to, for this, I can just do it on the one side because the clay is still wet enough that we don't have to overwhelm it with slip. So I'm just making sure it fills all of those cracks that I just put in there, all those scratches. I'm gonna take the other form, set it on top, and now I'm just going around and making sure that the edges are aligning with each other. Okay, it's already like sealed. It's really sticking to each other, which is good. It's what you want to happen, okay? All right. Now that I've done that, like, to pull this apart will be hard. You know, if for some reason you see little holes in there, we'll be able to fix it, but this is gonna be a really important step. So before I do anything else, I'm just gonna dump this on the table, move it off to the side. Once I clean my full table with the sponge at the end of class, we'll get the rest of that, but I just don't want any crumbs to get on this piece. All right, so next step is going to be taking a bone tool to smooth this seam. That's what I was talking about in the requirements. That seam cannot be visible. So it's gonna take some time. You need to be patient. Okay, I'm gonna stand up just to show you a little bit closer how to do this. Okay, you're gonna take the wooden tool, and you're gonna slowly begin going back and forth over that seam using the bone. Keep calling it a bone tool, the wooden tool. Bone tools for paper making, folks. All right, you can set it on the table while you do this too. But the important thing is that you're moving the clay back and forth over that seam. Now, if you start doing this and you say, man, my clay is still way too soft, it's pushing in and it's like popping out, then stop. Stop and let it sit in the sun. Don't force something if you can tell that the form, it's going to destroy the form, okay? The other thing is, when you're using the wooden tool, you kind of want to be gentle with it, okay? I am applying pressure to move the clay, but I'm also just keeping in mind that I don't want to like force the wooden tool in this direction. I'm keeping it parallel to the form. Also, I like to hold it up in the air, which takes some practice, but instead of doing it on the table, I feel like I'm a little bit more gentle with it if I'm holding it this way versus laying it on the table, okay? I'm just going over that seam. And keep in mind, you're gonna open this up and you're gonna clean the inside too. So you're not gonna get the perfect form to begin. Okay, so I'm going over. Also, if that tool isn't doing what you want it to do, if you're feeling like, oh, this tool is not really working for me, grab a different tool. Don't stick with the same tool just because you don't feel like going to get another tool. Okay? It might take a little bit of time to find one that you like. Okay, so I'm moving the clay. Back and forth to close it off. Okay. Honestly, I probably could let this sit a little bit more before I did this. Okay, so like I said, if you take it out, you start doing this, you're like, it's moving too much, then stop. Let it sit out and dry a little bit more, okay? You can also go back in and use the paddle again. Just trying to round the shape a little bit more, like I did before. The top two will clean it up. Oh, see, I don't like that one. I like this one. I think it's because, the shape of it works really good for me. For how I hold the tool. Okay, so I've connected it. It feels a little wobbly, which is okay. Remember, it's still pretty soft. Just gonna clean up some of the edges up here. And I'm also gonna pat the top a little bit. You can perfect the form later. Okay, so that's what I got.